Hello, my name is Haley Williamson, and for my criminal law oral presentation, I'm going to be talking about second-degree murder. So, my first slide, I decided to put the North Carolina second-degree murder statute. So, my next slide goes over essentially what murder is, and murder is it is the most severe crime that someone could possibly commit. If someone hears someone committed murder, that is basically it for them. Murder is the killing of another person without a valid excuse or justification. Like, there is no reasoning behind it. This also includes malice aforethought. Malice aforethought essentially means that the crime was premeditated and the perpetrator had malice for the victim. So I think it's important to discuss what the difference between first-degree murder is and what second-degree murder is. So first-degree typically means that you killed with premeditation, you killed in a cruel way such as torture, or you killed by committing a felony such as rape or robbery. Second-degree murder is basically if none of the first-degree murder, if any of the first-degree murder conditions apply and is deliberate, is second-degree murder. And typically, second-degree murder is going to be a heat-of-a-moment decision where the intention is to kill. So it's not going to, you're not going to have to think about it before you do it, but it happens. So, for my elements or the circumstances of the crime, I put that killing was a result of an act that was intended to cause serious harm. The killing was the result of an act that shows the perpetrator had an indifference to human life. The killing was done impulsively in a time of high emotion. Like I said, it's kind of the in-a-moment type deal. So, second-degree murder in North Carolina is a Class B1 felony with a prison sentence of 192 months to life in prison, or a Class B2 felony with a minimum sentence of 125 months in prison. And this does not sound like a long time, but trust me, it is. So, for punishments and defenses, so this is not as serious as first-degree murder, but it is still very high on the radar. Punishment can be a long term of imprisonment or possible life in prison. And typically, capital punishment, which is the death penalty or lethal injection, is not available for a second-degree murder conviction. I also wanted to include certain defenses that people may use when they are speaking of second-degree murder. They can argue it was a heat of passion, like a mental state that is provoked by fear or rage or anger or being scared. They can argue innocence, that they simply were not the one who committed the crime. They can also argue mental insanity. The accused does not have the mental capability of making a rational decision. They can blame it on their mental health, basically. Mistaken identity. This does happen. Like, one may believe that it was them, but it was not. It's kind of like how it's a issue with capital punishment. You have to really make sure and ensure that it was the right person. And self-defense. The killing was justified under the circumstances, such as you're just standing up for yourself. So for my example of a second-degree murder, I do not know how to pronounce this county name, but it was in Minnesota. A 29-year-old man pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for the death in 2019 of a 4-year-old boy. This man's name was Kevin Daniel Jackson. He was 29. Authorities responded to a call of a non-responsive 4-year-old on August 24th, 2019. When the officers arrived on the scene, they found the mother holding the child with noticeable bruising around his eyes, and her lips were really blue. So, according to the court reports, the child's mother admitted to using meth with her boyfriend at the time, the night before, and had slept for most of the day. She told police that her boyfriend came to bed around 4 a.m. crying and told her, "I'm sorry that he left," which she found was quite odd. She said she went upstairs and found her son wrapped in some blankets on a couch, and he had blue lips, indicating that he was dead. Jackson, which is the boyfriend, originally pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder charges in March. According to the plea argument, Jackson is expected to receive a sentence of around 180 months in prison. So now I have a video. It basically explains the difference between first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and manslaughter, which I think is very important because you need to know what the difference between them all are.
I get a lot is, what is the difference between first-degree murder and second-degree murder, and then involuntary manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter? What's this business about? I like to talk about things that aren't necessarily related to business law, simply because I think they're important for people to know. So I want to cover the murder-manslaughter question. Let's start with first-degree murder. The central part of murder is intent. What is your intention? And when we're talking about first-degree murder, we're talking about a term called malice of forethought, that you have the intent to kill someone or cause great bodily harm. So I think we have a fairly natural idea of what this is. You kill someone, you intended to kill someone, that is first-degree murder. Or if, let's say, I want to shank someone with a knife just to teach them a lesson. I don't intend to kill them, but I'm gonna make sure they feel it, right? And when I knife them, I hit their spleen and they end up dying days later. That is still first-degree murder because I've caused great bodily harm. Maybe I didn't intend to kill, but I had this malice of forethought. I wanted to cause really intentional destruction to someone. So what's second-degree murder? How is that different? Second-degree murder involves reckless abandonment. Okay, we don't intend to kill someone, but we have such wanton disregard for life that when someone dies, it is so grossly reckless that it's beyond anything that's reasonable. Let's say we're street racing and I kill someone in another car, and even though I wasn't intending to kill someone, I have recklessly abandoned the laws and limitation on our streets. So we do second-degree murder when you don't intend to kill someone, but it's so reckless, it's beyond anything that's reasonable. Then, after these first and second-degree murder, we get into manslaughter. We have two types of manslaughter. We have voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter. What's the difference here? Again, there's a bit of intention, there's a bit of emotion in this. With voluntary manslaughter, you intend to kill someone, but it's in a situation where you are so emotionally overcome that it's almost a instinct to kill them. The classic example is that a man walks in on his wife committing adultery, and in the heat of the moment, he kills that person she's committing adultery with. These are moment of passion crimes. You do not have a cooling off period. Your instinct, your gut reaction is to kill this individual. So it has to be a situation where you are so overcome with emotion that you had no chance to think about your actions. It's a fairly rare circumstance. It does happen, but it's fairly rare to have a voluntary manslaughter case. Now, involuntary manslaughter is where we have criminal negligence. All right, so we'll talk about negligence when we get into our section on torts, but I think we have an idea of when somebody's negligent, they've acted negligently. We have civil negligence cases. This is where we have criminal negligence. You are doing something that's negligent and someone dies. So you're driving your car, you accidentally run a red light, you kill someone in another car. That is criminal negligence. That's involuntary manslaughter. We're street racing. You run a red light intentionally to try to beat someone to the finish line, and you kill someone in another car. That would be second-degree murder. If you're just driving your normal drive and you get into a car accident, it's usually involuntary manslaughter. Murder is all about intention. It's all about the state of mind of the person who committed the crime. A couple famous examples of the murder versus manslaughter debate. Perhaps you remember the George Zimmerman trial. George Zimmerman was the neighborhood watch individual who was following a young man, and they got into an altercation and the young man was killed. The prosecutor was debating whether to bring second-degree murder or manslaughter, and asked for second-degree murder primarily. The big debate is whether this was a criminal negligence for manslaughter or whether it was a reckless abandon for second-degree murder. There was a lot of criticism after that case that perhaps the prosecutor should have just brought the manslaughter case because they lost the second-degree murder, reckless abandonment. This is a tough call in some cases. You don't know how a jury is going to respond to the facts, but probably there would have been a much better chance of getting some kind of conviction against George Zimmerman if they would have brought a manslaughter case. Second famous case is Conrad Murray. Remember the doctor who was Michael Jackson's private physician? Conrad Murray was giving Michael Jackson propofol to help him fall asleep. Again, the question became whether this is second-degree murder. Was it reckless abandonment of what a physician should be doing, of the Hippocratic Oath, or was it simple negligence? He was trying to help him sleep and he just gave too much or wasn't watching close enough to Michael Jackson's vitals, and Michael Jackson passed away on this propofol drug. So the question again was this second-degree murder or was it manslaughter? Hope that clears up the difference between first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and manslaughter.
So these are all of the references I used in my presentation. Thank you guys for watching.